Today we're going to work on lesson 5.7, which is going to be on fractions, decimals, and percentages. Please have your notebook and a pencil out. You're probably going to need a calculator as well. First thing I want you to have in your notes is the definition of percent. It's a special type of ratio comparing any number to 100. Easiest way to do it is out of 100. So once you have that, we're going to start figuring out percentages. So the grid has 100 squares. So here's a 100 square grid. We shaded in 50 of them, so ratio is 50 out of 100, which is anytime it's out of 100, it is 50%. Here on the second one, we shaded in 30 out of 100, so that's 30 out of 100, which is 30%. They also want you, however, to know decimals. Decimal is at the end of your number, and because it's out of 100, we take it back to 1. So we're going to move it to the left 2 spaces. So to put 50 into a decimal, we're going to go 1, 2, put the decimal there. It would be 0.50 or just 0.5, 5 tenths or 50 hundredths. Same thing with the 30. Move it to the left 2 times, 30 hundredths or 3 tenths, either one. Generally speaking, I would like you just to take off the 0. You don't need it. So 3 tenths or 5 tenths. So write 25% as a fraction and a decimal. So we're going to be doing this on our homework. I'm going to give you a fraction, a decimal, or a percent, and you're going to have to figure the other 2 out. So let's start with a decimal. Here's my decimal point. I'm going to move it to the left 2 times, 25 hundredths. There's my decimal. Now, percent, remember, we said was out of 100, so we take the 25 and we put it over 100. So there it is. Equivalent fractions for 1/5. The reason we're doing this is because not everything we get is going to be exactly out of 100. So if I wanted to make it out of 100, 5 times what? 20 gives me 100. So 1 times 20 would give me the 20 out of 100. So that's why we're going to be talking about equivalent fractions. So what about if a grid is only 50 squares and we've shaded in 30? So here we go, 30 out of 50, there's our fraction. We want to give some equivalent. Again, they want you to go up to 100 because that's going to make it easy. So multiply by 2, 30 times 2. So this is 60 out of 100. So then that would be 60% because it's out of 100. And as a decimal, it would be 6 tenths. So here we end up with a fraction, a decimal, and a percent. So change these fractions into percentages. So the first thing I want you to do is think of it as out of 100. So 5 times 20 gives me 100. 2 times 20 gives me 40, so that is 40%. Do it again. Put it equal to 100. 20 times 4 gives me 100. So 10 times 4 gives me 40. This is again 40%. Make it equal to 100. 20 times 5 gives me 100. So 4 times 5 gives me 20. This is 20%. Let's do it again. Out of 100. 40 does not go evenly into 100, so there's going to be some sort of decimal. So let's do 100 divided by 40, and that gives me 2.5. So I'd multiply it by 2.5. So 11 times 2.5. Probably not going to be perfect. 27 and 5 tenths. We can still use that as a percent. 27.5%. Definitely can have half percents. So here's where we're going with what you're going to be doing on your homework. You have to be able to get a fraction and find the other two. You have to be given a percent and find the other two. And you have to be given a decimal and find the other two. So that's what we're going to be doing. Let's start with Aiden. We have 3/10. So down here I'm going to do 3/10. Let's make it equal to 100. So 10 times 10 gives me 100. 3 times 10 gives me 30. So that would be 30%. And again, we move the decimal back. That would be 3/10. Okay, let's do Bob. Bob, we have the decimal. Well, now to make it into a percent, it's already a decimal. Instead of going to the left, we're going to go to the right twice, which makes it 25%. Now, as a fraction, 25 over 100, but I want it in simplest form. So I'm going to divide both of these by 5. Actually, I can divide both of them by 25. Divide by 25. That would give me 1/4. That would be my fraction. Now let's do Dan. 40%. Again, move it to the right. I get 4/10. 40 over 100. I'm going to divide by 4. That gives me 10 over 25. I'm going to divide by 5. That gives me 2/5. That's as low as I can go. There is my fraction. Fraction, decimal, and percents. I'm hoping a lot of this is review, but we're going over it anyway. So let's talk about a word problem. The circle graph shows how Mary spends her time every day doing these activities: sleeping, eating, going to school, completing homework, and hanging out with friends. Now, if we add all of these up, 8 and 7 and 3 and 2 and 4, I believe, let's see, there's 10, there's 20, we have 24 hours. So I know we have 24 hours in a day. So let's ask questions. I still have the graph down here. What fraction of Mary's day is spent sleeping and doing homework? So sleeping is 8 and doing homework is 4. So 4 plus 8 gives me 12. That's 12 out of 24. I want it simplified. I'm going to divide by 12. That gives me 1/2 of her day is spent sleeping and doing homework. Let's do letter B. I'm going to erase these circles so they don't mess me up. Let's do letter B. What fraction of Mary's day is spent not going to school? Well, she goes to school 7 hours. So 24 minus that 7 gives us, if I'm right, 17, I believe. So 17 out of 24. And I cannot simplify that. So there's the fraction of her not going to school. Last one, letter C. Again, erase my circle so I don't get mixed up. When added together, which two activities does Mary spend 25% of her total time on? 25% is 1/4. 1/4 of 24 hours. If I divide a day into 4 parts, that gives me, I believe, 6 hours. So what two activities added together is going to give me 6? Well, definitely not sleeping in school because that's over. 3 would need another 3. So we have eating and homework. Eating and homework. So using fractions and everything, we figured out the answer to the questions. Your homework is going to be fairly easy. Your homework is the 5.7 exercises after this in Go Formative, 1 through 36. You are going to have basically 6 fractions that you have to change into percentages, 6 decimals that you have to change into percentages. Then you're going to have 6 fractions you change into decimals, 6 percentages that you change into decimals, and then 6 decimals that you turn into fractions, and 6 percentages that you turn into fractions. So it's pretty much the same thing, but you're going to have 3 sets. Some to go to fractions, some decimals, some percents, given those. So 1 through 36 down below here in Go Formative. If you have questions, please send me a message. Otherwise, good luck.